Hello and welcome to the debrief on the Blood Red channel as Liverpool make it 2 wins from 2 to start the new Premier League season. A brace for Sadio Mane, a debut for Thiago Alcantara, and even a penalty save for Alisson Becker. You could say the complete performance for Jurgen Klopp's Reds. Alongside myself, Guy Clarke, is Matt Addison as we bring you live reaction to the 2-0 win over Chelsea. And Matt, after the week that Liverpool have had in the transfer market, nice to sort of round it all off with that performance at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, thoroughly impressive performance, really controlled. Obviously, the red card, I'm sure we'll talk about that in just a second, obviously played a huge part in the game, but Liverpool were on top far before that happened. And I think, yeah, as I say, controlled, I think is the word. Absolutely a deserved 3 points, really, really important. And I believe that's the first time ever that Liverpool have won both of their first 2 games of a top flight season, 3 seasons in a row. So it just goes to show really how far Liverpool have come under Jurgen Klopp. And I think Thiago is going to be a name on plenty of people's lips because he just really looked absolutely brilliant. So absolutely fantastic. All positives, not really any negatives apart from the slight injury to Jordan Henderson. But hopefully that's not too much and it doesn't keep him out for too long.
Yeah, we've got plenty of people getting in touch on the live chat, so do keep throwing your messages in there. If you've any questions for us, we'll try and answer as many of them as we can. But as you say, and we'll start with Thiago Alcantara. We'll get on to Sadio Mane, the brace that he got. We'll get on to Fabinho and how he played in defence. But everyone's been waiting all summer for Thiago Alcantara. We knew he was going to be part of the matchday squad, and he was. We didn't know if he would play or if he were to, how long he'd play for. But a thigh strain for Jordan Henderson meant he got a full 45 minutes when Chelsea were down to 10 men. Probably not many better players you could bring on for Liverpool or any team in world football when a team's down to 10 men. And he certainly didn't disappoint, did he?
No, I thought he might get the last half an hour. Obviously, the situation changes when Chelsea are a man down. As you say, nobody better to come on and just recycle the ball. And he just makes everything look so effortless, doesn't he? He's got that range of passing. I think he's a different type of midfielder to what Liverpool have got. Obviously, Jordan Henderson, fantastic ball for the red card incident. And I'm sure Thiago would have been proud of that pass himself. But I think just the way that Liverpool played through him, everything seemed to go through him. And obviously, there was a couple of really nice, well-worked moves. And one of those being the one that was finished off by Sadio Mane, where Thiago was instrumental. I thought he was very, very unfortunate to give away that penalty kick. Again, I'm sure that's something we'll discuss at some point in the future. But yeah, generally, I just thought he slotted in straight away. I saw Jurgen Klopp speaking before the game. He was saying how, Bayern play with sort of 2 number 6s. They don't play in a same sort of formation as what Liverpool do. There was a little bit of concern that he might take it a couple of weeks to slot into this Liverpool team. But on the evidence of that, I don't think that's really going to be the case. I think, obviously, there are times when defensively he might struggle a little bit if there's a real powerful or pacey player sort of going at him. I think we possibly saw that once or twice with Timo Werner, but generally he just looked really at home in the Premier League. It's almost like he's been here for a number of years. It certainly didn't look like he'd come on unexpectedly at half-time at Stamford Bridge against Havertz and players like that. And yeah, it was just so exciting. I think we're going to see obviously a lot more and a lot better performances from him as the season progresses, but as a base starting point to kick off from, I think it was, a real sign of intent really from him. And Liverpool have got so many midfielders, they don't really need any other options. But when you've got somebody who is of that world-class standard, you're never going to turn that down.
No, and obviously when he came onto the field of play, it allowed both Wijnaldum and Naby Keita to play without the shackles off. Play with the shackles off. Chelsea had been reduced to 10 men. I suppose that is the real sort of key part of the game because the first half Liverpool were on top, but it was quite even. Timo Werner was seeing a bit of the ball and trying to isolate Fabinho. Again, we'll touch on him shortly, but the red card, it was a brilliant pass from Jordan Henderson. Sadio Mane brought down by Andreas Christensen. A bit of a mindless tackle. Liverpool fans won't mind, though. And then, as we say, that allowed Thiago to come on and the midfield dynamic to change and Liverpool to just take full control of the match.
Yeah, I mean, on the red card incident, it was a fantastic pass, as I said, from Jordan Henderson. I think Sadio Mane would have got to that ball. I don't think there's any real doubt about that when you see the television replay, but I can understand why the referee gave a yellow card initially from the angle that he was. It wouldn't have been absolutely clear that that was the case. Obviously, Kepa had come a long way out of his goal. And I think obviously VAR, we've seen the referees go to the screens on the side of the pitch far more frequently this season. I think that's absolutely imperative. I'm not quite sure why they didn't do that, from the beginning when VAR was brought in. But yeah, it works certainly in Liverpool's favour. I wouldn't if VAR wasn't a thing, maybe the red card would have come out straight away. I think the referee probably had in the back of his mind that he could, change his mind. So he played it safe to begin with. But yeah, the right decision made in the end. And as you say, at a turning point in the game, I think Liverpool certainly were the better team beforehand, but I don't think we saw much of Timo Werner, the penalty incident aside, after that red card. He was, causing a fair few problems for Liverpool. Obviously, as soon as you're a player down, suddenly Timo Werner had to track back a little bit more. He had to sort of defend first and attack second, and Liverpool really penned Chelsea in that second half. So it was at a turning point in the game. I think Liverpool probably would have gone on to win the game anyway. I think probably if Christensen doesn't bring Sadio Mane down, Mane probably gets there and puts Liverpool in front. Obviously, the first goal in any game is absolutely crucial. But yeah, we will never know. The only thing we do know is that, as you say, that allowed Thiago Alcantara to come onto the pitch, changed the game for Liverpool. And as soon as that red card was shown, you just thought that Liverpool had to win. They had to go and get those 3 points. And that's what they did today.
Yeah, I suppose you've got a few narratives really running through the game, and those being the chase for the summer signing. Timo Werner was linked with Liverpool for so long, didn't happen. Then it was all eyes on Thiago. That move did happen. Werner didn't really do much to sort of show Liverpool were, I suppose, missing anything really. We've already spoken about Alcantara. And then I suppose the other element of the game is the narrative of the two goalkeepers who cost the two highest fees ever paid for goalkeepers. And Kepa Arrizabalaga continues to sort of, I suppose, disappoint Chelsea fans, but give Liverpool fans plenty of optimism and, I suppose, caution to smile at and reason to smile at Chelsea for paying the fee they did. Certainly when you think of that second goal that Sadio Mane was able to get.
Yeah, it was a complete contrast in performances, wasn't it? Alisson has sort of got a little bit of stick for some of the times that he hasn't saved penalties and things like that for Liverpool. But, that was a great save from him. It's about time somebody waited and let Jorginho did that on his penalties, because he has that really bizarre technique where he sort of jumps and skips. And I think Alisson did really well. He's obviously done his homework, waited and crucially didn't come off his line either, because we've seen that a couple of times this weekend. But yeah, Kepa, obviously, for the Sadio Mane goal, an absolutely dreadful error, an absolute howler. But I think in that situation, instead of talking about the mistake, I think we have to credit Sadio Mane for chasing back. You saw it. Obviously, he was frustrated with himself initially for giving the ball away, but then, straight away he switched on. He sees the opportunity and he gets his reward with the goal. So, yeah, two completely contrasting goalkeepers. But look, it didn't take today's game to prove that was the case. We've seen for a couple of years now since they both arrived in that same week, it's just been a complete contrast. I think what was Kepa, about 5 million more than Alisson. It really is a strange sort of situation to think about it like that. But yeah, there's no doubt about it for me. Alisson Becker, the best goalkeeper in the world, and Kepa is a long way short. I thought it was quite ironic. I think it was Fabrizio Romano tweeted that Chelsea's new goalkeeper signing is essentially confirmed. He tweeted that just a couple of minutes after that error from Kepa, and probably the timing was deliberate, shall we say.
Yeah, probably was. We best talk about, I suppose, the man whose goals were the difference, Sadio Mane. Of course, he was involved in the red card incident. It was a brilliant header for the first one. And the second, as you said, it was all about the work rate from him.
Yeah, exactly that. We know how good he is. Last week was Mohamed Salah's game. This week was probably Sadio Mane's. So Liverpool, again, spreading it around, making sure that both of those players are kept happy. And I think as long as they keep winning, that's absolutely going to be the case. I think Sadio Mane was brilliant. We know, obviously, his work ethic, as we touched on, that's always going to be there. But he's got that quality as well to find the finish and that sort of thing. I thought the header actually, as good as the move was for that opening goal, I thought the header was absolutely brilliant. It's something that he is kind of underrated on. I think I'm not exactly sure on the numbers of how many headers he scored for Liverpool, but for somebody of that height and that build, you wouldn't have thought it'd be quite as many as it is. But it is surprising how many of his goals come off his head and go into the net. And yeah, as I said, the move was absolutely superb. But then that header to sort of flick it, to get the power really to put it into that top corner was brilliant. So look, we know how good Sadio Mane is. I thought he was a little bit quieter than Salah last week. Roles reversed this week. Maybe it's Roberto Firmino's turn next week.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. Of course, Arsenal to come at Anfield next up for the Reds. But Timo Werner spoke in the week about the move. He didn't speak so much about Liverpool, but his move to Chelsea, saying he chose Chelsea, inferring maybe that he chose Chelsea over Liverpool. We'll, I suppose, always have to wonder if that was really the case. But I suppose today a lot's been said about Chelsea and how they'll challenge Liverpool and Manchester City for the Premier League title this season. But I suppose today really did show the golfing class between the two sides and the cohesion that Liverpool have, having been together for so many years, that Chelsea quite simply lack.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think everybody kind of predicted that, didn't they? At the start of the season, it would take a little bit of time. Obviously, Thiago Silva's not in there yet. Hakim Ziyech still injured for another couple of weeks. I think Christian Pulisic as well, a huge miss for them. I think he can be, a genuine replacement for Eden Hazard going forward. I think they've obviously lacked a player of that quality last season. So there is still a long way to go in the season. I don't think Chelsea will be a million miles behind, but I do think they are probably the third best team in the country. I think City and Liverpool both comfortably ahead of them in terms of the consistency and that sort of thing. And it is crucial that Liverpool have stuck together. They've not made wholesale changes. Obviously, everyone gets very excited about new arrivals and Thiago. I mean, to be fair to Thiago, he didn't look like a new arrival, did he? As we say, he slotted in straight away. It's up to Diogo Jota to do exactly the same thing. You'd imagine it wouldn't be too difficult for him, given he's played in the Premier League before, but there is going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. But again, I think it's so important that Liverpool's main 11, 12, 13 players are going to be pretty much the same as what they were last season and the season before. So when you can add in Takumi Minamino and one or two other little bits of quality in and around the team, it can only be a good thing. I think the one concern that we had was Fabinho possibly having to play at centre-back long term, but even that today, it seems that a solution has been found.
Yeah, we got a lot of people getting in touch about Fabinho, and before we go, we best talk about him. People comparing him to Virgil van Dijk, saying he's better than Joe Gomez or Joel Matip. I suppose it's not one game. He has played there for Liverpool before, but for this season, it's the first time we have seen him need to be used from the start as that fourth choice centre-back option. But he looked like he'd been playing there for years, Matt, and I think that's the best compliment you can pay him.
He absolutely did. I think in the first half, he didn't put a foot wrong. The second half, I think, again, it was the same, but with that caveat, of course, that Chelsea were a man down and weren't able to flood forward in as many numbers as what they probably would have done. So, look, I'd have no issues with Fabinho against a non-top six team week in, week out at home at Anfield. It is these big away games that you think he might have a few problems with. Of course, that wasn't the case today. But you'd always rather have him, I think, in the midfield. I still think, as much as, he's done absolutely fine at centre-back today, I do think he still does perform, obviously, better as a holding midfielder for Liverpool and potentially in some of the bigger games, potentially games in the Champions League and stuff like that. It's not so much that he's bad at playing centre-back, it's just that he's better at playing in midfield. And, as much as Thiago's come in and he can play in that number 6 role, I think probably against a Chelsea team or a team of a similar standard where it's 11v11 for the entirety of the match, I think possibly he would have had a couple more difficulties. I think you'd rather see potentially a 2 sort of number 6, a double pivot for Liverpool of Thiago and Fabinho together, and then a proper centre-back in there behind them as well. So potentially away from home, maybe in the latter stages of the Champions League, potentially, or in a game, say, away at the Etihad against Manchester City, you probably wouldn't want to see it too often. But, Fabinho is certainly good enough that against a lower team further down the league, particularly at home, as I say, you could imagine him playing there and slotting in. So I think it was a big concern going into the game. But the fact that he's dealt with someone as good and as quick and as fast as Timo Werner today, it can only be a good thing going forward. And it is important to mention as well that the injuries to Joe Gomez and Joel Matip only expected to be a short injury. Joe Gomez, I don't think, trained on Friday. He's then missed, obviously, the game today, but could well be back for Thursday night's Carabao Cup tie. And Joel Matip as well. It's not meant to be a big injury. I think Jurgen Klopp was sort of talking around about a week or so for him. So, look, we know that they both have little injuries here and there. It is still a slight concern for me. I think you'd much rather have an actual proper fourth choice senior centre-back in there. But if worse comes to worse, Fabinho has shown there that he is capable on one-off occasions now and again of being able to do that.
Yes, certainly is the case. Before we go then, just to let you know that Thiago Alcantara completed more passes, 75 of them, than any of Chelsea's players this afternoon at Stamford Bridge. And since Opta have been recording data for the Premier League on statistics, it works out his 75 passes, the most that any player who's played a maximum of 45 minutes in a game has ever played since coming off the bench, or of course starting and playing the first 45 minutes of a game. So it all bodes well for Liverpool. 2 wins out of 2 to start the new Premier League season. Thiago sparkling in midfield. Sadio Mane getting a brace as well for Jurgen Klopp's side. Stick with the Blood Red channel because both Frank Lampard and Jurgen Klopp's post-match press conferences will follow here on the Blood Red YouTube channel. But from myself, Guy Clarke and Matt Addison alongside me, thanks a lot for joining us live here for the debrief on the Blood Red channel. It's bye for now.